Happy New Year and welcome to Ladies Talking Leafs. I'm Syl.
And I'm Chris. And yes, welcome and Happy New Year. And I don't know if any of you guys and girls notice, but we started off differently a little bit here.
Just want to keep it fresh.
Yeah, because it's hard. I was thinking of this as I was coming out here to Syl's place, and I was thinking, how can we start a podcast differently? And you can't really say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, because our audience is listening from everywhere. So we don't know. So I said to Syl, she has to start the podcast today. How creative, right? But but that's okay. So that's what we started. That's what we decided to do, something different. And we say Happy New Year, of course. And hope you guys all and girls had a Merry Christmas. And that's the other thing we thought we'd start with, basically to say what is our favorite Maple Leaf Christmas gift of all time that we ever got. Mm-hmm. And for me, I mean, I don't know, it's a combination of, I think it was Christmas that I got the tickets to the game. I don't know my first game. I think my Uncle John, my Uncle John definitely gave me the tickets. I know that. He knew some car salesman that had a connection at Maple Leaf Gardens. And they were gray tickets, always in the grays. I don't know. We're always with the real fans. That's where me and Syl hang out, with the real fans, right at the top of the building. They weren't, mind you, I don't think they were in row. The last row at Maple Leaf Gardens was row P. I'll always remember that, I thought, right? But in the grays. But so that was my most favorite Maple Leaf gift. Between that and the jersey, I also got a jersey at some point. Mm-hmm. But
for me, actually, it's a fairly recent gift that you got for me, even though I'm like not a real big wine drinker. But a few years ago, Doug Gilmore had an affiliation with the winery in Prince Edward County, so shout out to them, called Carlo Estates, and he did wine with them, and he had, I guess, a promotional event at LCBO, and you found out about it and went, and knowing that I'm a huge Doug Gilmore fan, you found out about it and went down there to get me a bottle of this wine. And it is autographed by Doug Gilmore.
Yes, I thought it was very cool.
It actually is really cool. And I have since been to this winery. That bottle of wine, too, is now worth quite a bit. It's like there's not many that you can find anymore. And it's, if you want to buy one there, because I think they still have a few, it's over $80 for the bottle now. So It's going up in value as well. So anyway, that was really cool. I have not yet opened it because I don't know. I just don't really want to open it yet. But yeah. So I have this specially bottled Doug Gilmore wine from Carlo Estates that is autographed by him. So
yeah. So I basically went to the LCBO and I heard about him being there. And there wasn't too much of a line. He was really cool, actually, when I went to see him. He was sitting, there wasn't too many people and at that time. And then he's like, so I just went up to him and I told him how last time we met him was at the post office at Canada Post, but you actually went to get me the sign stamps.
when I asked, he was very particular about how to spell people's names, and when I said the name Christine, he said, "Is that with a C or a K?"
Yeah. Yeah. So we follow Dougie around a little bit, sort of thing, when we take advantage of when he's promoting something or involved in a promotion. So yeah. But on Instagram and Twitter, we actually put something a little while ago, no, a long time ago anyways. We said, what is the best gift a Maple Leaf fan could ever get or receive? And we want you to go on. We're not going to say what it is. So we want you, the audience, to go online and check out Twitter and Instagram and even tweet us to say that you actually know what the best ever gift is. Because we're not going to say it now, because we want you guys to go and follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, and you can find out what the best gift is for any Maple Leaf fan.
Mm-hmm. And then tell us what you think.
And tell us what you think, yes, and think it is. So we're going to get to December now, to the
Get
games.
into the nitty gritty of things.
And
so this is really first month of Sheldon Keefe proper.
Yeah, and it's lots of experimenting, basically. It's just like you can't keep track. Some people say it's good that way, but because everybody knows how to play with everybody, and now that we have...
That's true.
And now, unfortunately, because we have quite a few injuries coming up...
It's a necessity.
It's almost a necessity, so it's good that he's been experimenting the whole month. But started off not so good with the Avs and Philly. Philly was brutal. That was like a 6-1 loss. And technically it wasn't really 6-1. I think they got 3 empty net goals or something like that. Or it was like 2.
I remember it was like bang, bang, bang. It was
but then we got...
Hard to watch.
But then in the Avs game, we got Marner back. So that was good after missing 11 games. And you could immediately tell the difference, even though... he was basically going on adrenaline a lot of that game. But you could see the team played better. It was a better game.
It's funny because it's almost like, to me, I always sort of felt like when he came back, he was a different player than he was at the start of the season. So it's like having that little bit of time off with the injury was sort of a reset, and he was able to put the whole contract business behind him because he seems different. He seems like back to his normal self now.
Oh, definitely now, yes.
Since the injury, which is kind of odd because normally, like an injury, it takes a player a little time to get back into the swing of things.
You were saying because it was a highly ankle sprain, right?
Yeah.
Because you were saying
I
originally
thought it was going to take him a lot longer.
Yeah, and normally it does with that type of injury, but Mitch is Mitch, I guess, and he
pretty resilient.
He loves being a Leaf, and he's very much okay now, but. I guess, and then we lost, but I guess we get him back, and then we lost Janssen.
I know, that just was like blowing my mind how it's like you get one back and another one, you know.
And with him, I don't know, it's kind of interesting. And even with Trevor Moore now, because he got a concussion in practice, which nobody's really saying too much about that. So I'm like,
how it happened?
Yeah, so these, they're kind of, they're not the same type of player, but they're all between Kapanen, Janssen, and Moore. Like they can all play similarly, or
I think they each have probably a little bit of a special skill set, but but for the most part,
they're all interchangeable, sort of.
Exactly,
right? Interchangeable
kind of
parts. So I don't know. As you miss the two, Kapanen has been obviously the I guess the most steady of them. The being less injury prone right now.
Although with him, I do find that, as they've been experimenting and moving him up and down in the lineup, he tends to very much do better when he's down in the lineup somehow.
Yes,
so playing on the third line, that seems to be
with Kerfoot
his
and
spot.
Engvall.
It just seems to be a better position or spot for him.
I'm actually I was a little bit concerned until he scored the other night. I think it was on Friday night versus the Devils. I think he got the goal there. But finally, because between those 3 players, there are trade possibilities, I think.
Oh, 100%. I mean, somebody, if they're going to get anything of substance, I mean, what are we going to trade for? Another player that is like in their mold, or like someone we could call up. That's just not what we need. So it's going to be a more top flight type player, probably on D.
Yes, that's what we need, basically on D, or we need going back to Freddie, basically on our backup goalie situation.
The never-ending
thing. Because, so Freddie, first time, Sheldon Keefe, again, these are the changes that he's doing with his experimentation. He actually played Freddie back-to-back versus Philly in the Avalanche. And he was phenomenal in that Avalanche game in the beginning of the month. And but now he's on pace for 64 games now to play, which is not
by
good.
All accounts is, I mean, if the drop off that he's had in the playoffs is due to fatigue, which, I mean, you could say that, but no one really knows for sure, then this amount of games that he's sort of projecting to play is not good. However, it could happen that he plays less. Maybe he needs to play more. We don't know. So until he actually wins a series and, is our star every night, like we know he can be, we're not going to know what the real perfect threshold is.
And there's only 3 more back-to-back games. So Hutchison, he finally got his first win versus the Red Wings. Mm-hmm. I think it was the Red Wings. And
he squeaked another one out just this past.
Yes, with the Devils.
a week.
Yeah, so he met, but there's still not a confidence there. I don't have.
No.
And there's only 3 back-to-backs left, so they cannot play him just another 3 games. There's no way. They got to get him in there.
No, he's got to play more than that, which means that they're going to have to be very specific and crafty in which games they decide to put him in. And this is what we pay our stats people for, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to have to look at all the different variables and figure out which teams basically we can outscore, because he just has to hold the fort enough so that our guys can get as many, like the Carolina game, for example. I mean, that was the Wild West revisited again, which was totally crazy and wild.
Yeah.
But, there's going to have to be a few of those games where we are relying on outscoring our opponent. I mean, and he's going to have to, just basically hold on.
Yeah, it's almost like the way they said, it's like the Grant Fuhr thing from the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah.
The Oilers were an offensive machine in the 80s. As long as Grant Fuhr knew that next goal, you
he
cannot
had
give up.
a goals against or something over 3.
Yeah.
At that time, but he wasn't the only one. There was a lot of goalies at that time. None of them were under 2. So,
so I guess going back to that Avs game, it was Kadri's return as well.
Yes.
And that was a special night. That was something special. Mm-hmm. The parents, the mom having tears.
Mm-hmm. and we shed
tears. Yes, because I don't know, that deal to me might not work. So I don't think Tyson Barrie still, he's playing better under Keefe, but
honestly, I think everybody thinks because he's the right-hand D, that Tyson Barrie was the part of the deal that they were hoping to get. I don't think so. That's not my impression. I actually think that Kerfoot was the mainstay of that deal because they wanted a third line center that more fit the amount of playing time that they needed, which Kadri needed more playing time than he was going to get with us. And Kerfoot is the one that is signed for longer. Tyson Barrie, they have for this year. And so I think he's a placeholder for when we're going to get another defenseman. But
then they should have, then I think too, well, I guess maybe the throw-in was the fact that the Avs paid for Tyson
100%
Barrie's contract, part of his contract for this year.
So we save some cap.
So you say, I guess that's it, because to me, 1-for-1, Kerfoot for Kadri. Kadri is
no, that's not it. I think the other part of that deal is potentially who we might get after the fact.
Yeah, but I don't know. I also think
and truly, there is not a single person when that trade went down that said that was a bad deal, because everybody was really high on Tyson Barrie.
Yes.
So
but it just had, to me, the fit. I don't know. Maybe we'll see something as we go along.
I love Kadri, and he was a better fit for our team before the makeup of this team now. Last year was not a good season for him, and it's not just because of the suspension business. It's also because he wasn't able to get as much time on the ice as he really needs to. He's flourishing in the Avs organization now because he's getting, second and sometimes first line minutes and first power play time too. So I don't think that he was as good a fit here anymore. Yes, are we losing a huge aspect of what he delivered when he was here? Big time. Do we all miss him? Absolutely. But the way they're building this team now, he's not going to be as effective here as he has been in past seasons. I don't think.
The other part, I think I will move on in a second, but the other part that I think we're missing from Kadri is the fact that he loved being a Maple Leaf.
Well, for sure.
And I don't know these two other players like Kerfoot and Barry.
Yeah.
The only people that have that love of being a Maple Leaf right now that I can see is Morgan Riley.
Yeah, but he's
and mind you,
technically
he's the longest serving now, and obviously John
and he's
Tavares
also from BC.
Yes, yeah, and John Tavares, who's the obviously with his Maple Leaf pajamas and everything. We all seen that picture of him under the blankets, and the Zach Hyman.
Yeah.
I think actually likes
but
it.
But you know what?
Connor Brown is
really helps players love being a Maple Leaf when they freaking win. That's going to help them all love being a Maple Leaf.
Yes,
so,
yeah. None of them have seen that yet. So
no.
So we'll
have to wait.
We'll have to wait for that. Yeah. So then moving on to the middle of the month, I guess we had the couple of games versus the Blues, where again Sheldon Keefe. It was one game versus the Blues. We won 5-2. That was a really good game.
That was a really good game. That's probably might be one of the better games I've seen them play.
Yeah, and then. So that's where Keefe basically, he changed the D pairings up and put Cece on the third pairing with Dermott, which ultimately I think
was a really good move.
A really good move, yes.
He hasn't had to do too much.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's a good role for him because he's just able to sort of play within himself instead of overdoing it.
Yeah, and then he moved Barry with Riley and then Muzzin and Hall.
That's been pretty good, actually.
Yeah. It's been
there's obviously the downfall because neither of them are like great defensively. And
Riley's a little bit better, but the thing with them is I think they need to check in as to who is going, basically, right? Like who's...
Yeah, they can't both go.
They can't both go offensively.
Or the other thing is that if... the forwards also need to be smart about that because they've got to know who they're playing with too and realize that these two are they have an offensive gift and mindset. So not everyone can be scoring. It's like not, Timbit soccer or whatever, Pee-wee or whatever, hockey. So where everyone's trying to crowd around the net.
Although I heard Riley hasn't scored now in like 26 games or something.
Yeah.
Which he had the other night, he had 10 shots on goal against the Rangers, which I was like, why couldn't it go in?
It's going to, because when you start I think that's one of the hallmarks or whatever when things start to turn around is when you're starting to get a lot of shots. Like remember Kadri was like that. Speaking of Kadri, he would go for a long time where he was like dinging them off the post and he'd get so many shots and then none of them were going in. It's like he was totally snake bit and then eventually they'll start going in. So it'll happen for him. I think he's had a very difficult start to the season. We don't really know what the background is of that 100%. That's been very, very
he's been better of late though.
Yeah,
so
he is. So it's coming around.
It's coming around.
But as I was saying, the forwards, if they're going to be playing that kind of, cycle where the D is going to jump in, then part of that is the forwards need to cover as well. So
speaking of forwards,
though, smart about that.
We'll move on to the forwards. We'll talk a little bit about Zach Hyman and that Western Canada road trip that we had. Basically, he was just all over the place in wins in Vancouver and Edmonton, and I mean Freddie was phenomenal. There was like in Vancouver, he had I think that's why maybe people are saying that he's tired now because he had maybe 10 breakaways to deal with in that Vancouver game. It was just...
Which was nuts.
It was just crazy. And he stopped them. It was just unbelievable.
And that's not usually his forte. He's not normally great on those breaks.
No. But Zach Hyman, basically, he started the month. That's what I was saying this before we started this podcast to Syl. He started the month on a line with Kerfoot and Kapanen. So he was on let's say the third line. Then Keefe switched him up, put him with his usual line mates because Marner came back. So he went back to Tavares, Marner, Hyman, which was fine. They played well. Then in the game versus the Red Wings, Hyman was with Matthews and Marner. So I think
we all know how that turned out.
And we all know how that turned out. So it seems no matter, that's what I was saying to Syl, that it seems no matter where Hyman is, basically everything seems to be great. So and that's one thing Syl was mentioning with Babcock. He obviously Babcock.
That's the one thing that he well,
he was a
he got a
Hyman.
few things right, but
Yeah.
he was like a Hyman supporter, promoter through thick and thin, and a lot of people questioned it, but you can't help but wonder if he was
He
right
obviously
on the
knew
money.
something was on that. Yeah.
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 And talk about players who like being Leafs. He's definitely one of those.
Yeah. He's definitely.
So, and I'm not saying that has anything to do with the way he plays, but the guy, you can just put him anywhere. And I mean, he's even on a really incredible scoring pace too.
Yes,
so
yeah.
who would have thought? And
Yeah.
coming off that's like a really hard injury
Yes.
to come back from.
Yeah.
And he does not seem like he's missed a beat at all.
Yeah. And and then of course we have to talk about Austin Matthews.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know. I was like,
I'm just like right now, like I'm sort of daydreaming a little bit about that goal he had the other night. Oh my God, he had a couple of incredible ones.
Yes.
And then that pass,
And
that
the
sick pass that he made to Marner. My eyes are watering right now, people.
Yeah, yeah, because basically, for me, it started with the game versus the Sabres, where I think he had 2 goals and an assist there. But
Yeah, he
I'm not
doesn't
sure.
usually just get one.
But yeah, it's always
Very rare.
It always seems that like Eichel, it's obviously the Eichel Matthews show. Let's just
Although
say, right?
I kind of feel like that means more to Eichel than it does to Matthews.
Yes,
like I don't
yeah.
really see that that kind of emotion where he's slapping the glass and he needs to beat him. Like I don't think that. I think it's more I think it's a little one-sided.
Yeah, but
it's rivalry.
But it's funny because it's like there's the inconsistency with that Austin Matthews too, and a lot of people I know they're saying like he's
How
getting
he
paid
goes-
the 11.4 million or whatever it is. He's the highest paid player, so. I mean, I could see like the Philadelphia game, the Calgary game, and the Edmonton game. He was, especially Philadelphia and Calgary, he was almost invisible. I think.
Yeah, that wasn't a great road trip for him in general.
He wasn't going. So it just. So when you see him going, like he has been recently, you're just thinking if only he could even it out a little bit. But he's on pace now for 53 goals.
Yep.
So our prediction from
slowly creeping up. I think he's like right behind Mr. Pastaman.
Yeah. So he's definitely. Well, we already said he's going to hit 50. We think he is, and
that will be something. Which I do have to make a correction from our last podcast too, because I want to sincerely apologize to Dave Andrechuk because I think I said that Gary Lehman was the last person to score 50 for us, and Dave Andrechuk was the last person. So Dave, I'm so sorry.
All right, so we've said our apologies. That's good. And I guess along with Austin Matthews, William Nylander has been pretty much following him along, or I don't know if he's the driver too. Like, it's kind of funny because he was with Nylander most of the month until Keefe switched up with Marner.
Yeah, and I found that was interesting actually, and I thought that says a lot about Willie maturing as a player, that he moved lines, but he hasn't really missed a beat, and him and Tavares are kind of creating some stuff. So
because right now Nylander, the last 6 games, he has 5 goals, 5 assists. So he has 10 points in the last 6 games. So he hasn't dropped off after. No. And I think that's a credit to obviously to Tavares, right?
Because we all know that he's like a star maker anyways.
Yeah, because on the Islanders, I don't know who the hell he was playing with, but
it doesn't matter.
Nobody. That's why we can't remember the names. So obviously it couldn't be. We remember John Tavares, but we don't remember the names of the other 2 players.
I do remember a few, but
oh, you do?
Yeah, like Matt Molson. And
that's right.
Pozo play with him too. Anyways,
I don't know. Anyways, forget about the New York Islanders. So, so. Keefe's record going now is 12-4-1, I guess, after this Rangers game.
That's not bad.
It's not bad.
I have to give him credit, and this is one of the things that I kind of love about his coaching style is he, like where Babcock was very, this is our game plan, and we're sticking to it. This guy has such a bead on the way the game is going and his players. It's like I don't know how he can know them so well. Mind you, some of them he's coached for a long time,
and he does the in-game adjustments.
He seems to have the pulse of the game and the players, and he's the way he does things, it's very situational. Like even the way he handles the back-to-backs and the goaltenders, I kind of feel like he's never going to just go one way. And honestly, I think that's a smart way to be too, because even within, like I'll be really curious, assuming that we make the playoffs, to see how he makes these adjustments within a series. That's going to be really interesting to watch, because that is when these things could play dividends, because he potentially could be making it so that the team we're playing is playing against a different Leaf lineup every other game or so, depending on where they are in the series, what the situation demands, and within game as well. Like he seems to be able to kind of make these switches on the fly, and so it's kind of interesting.
So we'll see how it goes going into January. But now we're gonna go on to a different kind of topic that a lot of I guess the radio guys and radio programs have been going, and TV. We're going to go into the Ladies Talking Leafs top 10 moments of the decade.
And we kind of have our own little spin on it, obviously.
Yeah.
So
because we're fans. So,
So I guess we'll start with number 10.
Yes. Yeah.
So do you want me to start?
You start.
Okay. So for me, number 10 was the Phaneuf trade. I'll never forget the day that was done, and it kind of floored me because, first of all, the last time something like that happened was when we got Dougie. So of course, we're like, oh, a big, massive overhaul like that mid-season. You're like, okay, something cool could happen from this. Obviously, Phaneuf was still a really highly touted defenseman at the time.
Yeah, I actually wrote down though the players that we got in exchange, or we had to change for, was Matt Stajan.
Yeah, I was sad about that, because he was always a good Leaf.
But he ended up being quite the Calgary Flame there. Big time. He was there a long time, and then Nicholas Hagman, Ian White, and Jamal Mares.
Yeah,
right. So that's who we basically gave to get Phaneuf.
And I think Hagman, he went on to play in different spots too, and actually did really well. But I remember it being a really big deal, and Brian Burke was pretty much being lauded at the time. It's so difficult in this market, because when these things go sour, which we obviously know that it did, and sour it was.
Yeah.
But at the time, that was a pretty hopeful moment for us Leaf fans. I remember it being a pretty big deal, and we were all pretty happy about it.
Yeah. So number 9, we're going to move on. Number 9 is, so we tried to make this more positive, let's just say, but there are certain things that you cannot deny happened.
And because these are our top moments, not necessarily good moments always,
but we remember them and we know what we were feeling at the time. So the number 9 was the waffle incident.
Yes. So we were talking about sour things. This was one of those sour times.
So this actually happened, looking back though, this happened 9 months after the Phaneuf trade. So it was December 2010 that it happened. One guy wrote the Leafs were they had oversized egos. Get it? They said egos.
Oh.
So I think so that's why he
okay, that's why the fan threw
that's
the
why
waffle.
he threw the waffle sort of thing with the egos and the egos, right? I don't know. I don't even remember. I don't think we were at that game though. I don't remember being there. I remember eventually it started with the egos, but then it got worse. It started with the jerseys being thrown on the ice and all that, right? But
I think we were there for a jersey throwing incident.
So the previous year, just to, I guess, give our audience a bit of a
context,
as to what happened before. So we finished 29th the previous year. Actually, it was funny too with that waffle incident, because I had to go back. I actually read. I guess Austin Matthews has made things so much better that I forgot a lot of things about the event. So I just had to go back and look up things on the internet, and I saw Colby Armstrong was actually on the team at that time. And he said, who brings waffles to a game? He's like, and now that you see the guy on Sportsnet, like I can just picture him saying this sort of thing, right? And he was a player at that time. But so that was number 9.
Mm-hmm.
So
number 8, which, I guess this could have been in multiple different slots, but we chose it as our number 8 moment is the collapse in Boston.
So still hanging on to their negativity there.
So yes. Wow. I remember that game, and I don't think we were together watching that game.
This is what we were talking about this the other day, and I couldn't understand. I was with my friend Deb. I know Deb is listening. We went to, so we were at an establishment basically with my friend Deb, and it was going so well. I remember how excited I was.
And I'm sure everybody there was.
Oh, yeah. And
same with us at home. Like I was watching at home.
I don't know why we were separated, but so I was just like, I couldn't believe it going into the third period that we were like ahead.
Yeah.
And by it was 4-1, I think, right? And I was like, this is fantastic. But then, yes. It was the collapse. I was like, one by one, you could just tell as soon as they got the Bruins got the second goal, you could just tell something was not right. Like that it was not going well. And talk about emotions. I was just like, oh my God. Afterwards, I remember walking out and
stunned.
Like downtown, because we were in downtown somewhere, and you just couldn't believe it.
That's how I felt. I was stunned.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure the players were stunned. But, that is Boston's MO, and they still do this to this day. They can turn it on. And this is like a hallmark of Boston teams in general, because the Patriots do this too, where in the last 5 minutes, they just can pour it on, and the game is it's like a slap in the face, like what the heck just happened?
Yeah.
And that's what happened to us then. Yeah. And of course, we know really the fallout from that, and that's kind of still been hanging over us, obviously, even though that the makeup of our team now is completely different.
We'll get past it.
We get
soon.
Past
we have
it.
a feeling.
Yeah.
Good feeling. So
Number 7
was the Winter Classic in 2014 at the Big House in Detroit or in Ann Arbor, Michigan. That outdoor game, it's coming up now, I guess, because it was New Year's game, right? So that we'll never forget, because it was just freezing, and it was
freezing,
and it was snowing.
We were like human snow people.
I'll never forget.
I've never seen that much snow coming down, and we were sitting there, and it was just accumulating on all of us.
Thank God Tyler Bozak scored that overtime, or it was overtime or shootout. It was shootout, no?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, but anyways, thank God he scored the winning goal, because
made it all worth it.
Yes, yeah, because I remember going to the restaurant afterwards, and you could feel your face melting, like the tingling sensation. So we must have had frostbite, I'm thinking to myself now, because that tingling sensation on the face.
And we were so layered up because we had, I don't know, I would think I was wearing like 5 layers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, and lots of layers.
It was so crazy. Yeah. And I am not a winter weather person. Yeah. So you got to know that I love the Leafs for me to put myself out there and sit through that.
It was worth it.
And be
definitely.
Happy.
It was definitely worth it.
And then that drive home was so treacherous. Oh my God.
Yes. Thanks to Gary.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
For getting us to home safely. That was quite the drive.
Yeah.
Afterwards. Insanity. And it was late too, because
it was really, that's the one thing. It was it's such a small town. It was getting 100,000 people out of there in a snowstorm.
Yeah.
Was a nightmare, but it was worth it. And it was like an experience, obviously, that we're never going to forget.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Okay. So number 6, the Shanahan / Babcock hiring. So
we kind of put them together.
Yeah.
Sort of, because
for time,
for the time, and we give us an extra spot too on the top 10. But anyways,
when Shanahan got hired initially by Tim Lewicki, that was kind of an interesting thing, because I've never ever really associated him with I know he's like from Mimico and everything, but at the time I never really associated him so much with Toronto. So for him to come back here and talk about how he had this vision for changing things around, I don't know, that really resonated with me at the time. And then when they were able to bring Mike Babcock in, who by all accounts was the biggest get for a coach at the time. Now,
for sure. Yeah.
Hindsight being what it is, that was such a huge deal. Like I remember them, watching the cars and the planes and all of this stuff going on between us and Buffalo.
Wasn't quite the Kawhi Leonard thing, sort of.
No, not quite, but almost. Like, considering he's a coach, that was an unprecedented scenario.
Yeah.
So that was, again, like another sign where, we had a little bit more hope for the future, because I kind of felt, especially with Shanahan, that he had a real idea of because it seems like he's been a fan of this team growing up, what it really would mean and what really needs to be done to kind of turn this ship around.
Yeah.
And he made some hard decisions really early on as well. And
because like he did what basically I think Stevie Y now in Detroit is using his template sort of thing.
Really?
Yeah, like
that's kind of interesting, because Stevie Y has a pretty good template of his own.
Yeah, Steve Yzerman. Sorry, I should say that. In case nobody knows Stevie Y, everybody should know him, but because he's a great player, Hall of Famer, and I think he's using the same thing in Detroit, basically looking at what he has. Yeah. It's a little bit different, but he's looking at what he has, and he's going to build that team through the draft and get good veteran players in there to help the younger players along. At number 5, we have as. I'm just looking at this list now as I'm doing it again, and I don't know why I didn't notice this before, but there's a lot of Austin Matthews in here. So number 5 is the Austin Matthews draft. Yes, and I mean, you can't deny it. Obviously, he's when we got him in the draft, that lottery when they flipped the logo.
Well, first of all, I think we have to include the lottery night as well in that, because I remember 100% what I was doing, where I was. When I was watching them flip those cards over. And when we got the number 1, like everybody started jumping up and down and screaming, and it was a huge deal.
They said it was funny because I don't really remember the logic behind the lottery, like as to how they run it, but there was a number 13 involved. And from what I remember too, there's 13 on the maple leaf on the logo. There's the 13 little sticks along the logo or whatever. There's the 13 there.
Yeah.
And the fact that the number 13 played a part in the lottery ball somehow. I'll have to look up and I'll research this a bit more. But anyways, I remember this thought, and it's almost like it was like meant to be because of this number 13. There is a reference there, though. I just thought in my mind to Matt Sundin, which that I don't like too much. Sorry. I'm sorry. We'll get into that another time. But anyhow, I'm getting these I don't know. This is
and then actually getting him.
Yes, yeah. You just, I don't know. Then of course we might as well just go into number 4 on the list, which
was his opening night. Drama, which. I remember I actually was at a client's house training, and the game had started. And before I even got out the door, like her husband was watching it, and I was kind of listening. And he said, "Oh my God, Austin Matthews has scored." I'm like, wow, that's great. In his first game, that's so good that he scored. And then before I even left, oh my God, he scored again. Wow, 2 goals. Holy crap. And then by the time I got home and then watched how it all unfolded.
So it's the
crazy.
4. It's the number 4 is his 4 goals in his first game. And
no hat tricks.
No.
Just the 4
But
goals.
I just remember I was watching it on TV too, and at the same time, I don't know how I was hearing of it, if it was on social media or whatever, or even just on the broadcast itself. But I remember there was players from other teams chiming in, basically.
Yes, and they were tweeting. I remember that
one
too.
of them especially that, and I'm sure it's important to Austin Matthews as well, was Patrick Kane.
Yes.
Right? Because he's very much, that's kind of one of his heroes
his
idols. And he looks up to him, being an American too.
Yeah.
American-born player. And Patrick Kane, apparently, he said, like, he's like, what's going on? He's like, because everybody, I think he was out west, or I guess with the time difference. And he said, he's like people were calling him, basically saying, you got to come and watch the kid. Your fellow Americans kid is like making history here. He's like, what? He's like, and then I just thought that was cool. The fact that
so many other players were watching.
So many other players were watching it. So that was number 4.
That was definitely incredible. And what I love too is that every goal was different.
Yeah.
Like he scored 4 goals in 4 different ways, which is really, he has got his moves, obviously his signature moves.
Yeah.
But that is one of the things that is so special about him, is that he works on his shot, but not just the shot, it's the versatility, so that he can light it up from pretty much anywhere.
Yeah.
And so that was we had no idea what we were going to be in for in that moment, but wow, that was definitely an incredible
moment,
start.
basically, of the decade. Yeah. And one last thought. The one goal that I remember was him blowing past Erik Karlsson. That was very nice. But okay. So moving on to number 3.
The centennial season.
Yes,
so there was a lot of special moments.
So it started on that opening night with the retirement of the players' numbers.
Oh my gosh, that was such an emotional. We luckily brought Kleenex with us because we knew we would need it.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if we want to mention who wasn't there.
No, we won't get it. That's negativity.
Anyways,
so
sorry, no negativity. Sorry,
because now we're all into the positive stuff.
But that was because, and that is a Shanahan thing.
Yes,
the fact that he, because that was always a thing with Montreal Canadiens. They always retired the numbers, and with the Leafs, they were like, no, we're going to honor the numbers. Blah 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 blah. But the fact that Shanahan, he kind of gets it, the reverence that should be surrounding this Leafs team. And that was one of the first signs of that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the creating Legends Row, that was another thing, because that's a thing that we do love when we go on our road trips.
Yeah.
A lot of places have really cool statues.
Yeah.
And so now we have our own, and it'd be interesting to see, how they decide to add to that down the road. But
and then I guess part of that centennial season was the Centennial Classic game too, the outdoor game.
Thank God it was a lot warmer that day.
It was warm that day. Yes, and so basically the only thing that I thought of actually that on that centennial season that it didn't work out to do would to be having some sort of event at Maple Leaf Gardens, because thankfully Maple Leaf Gardens is still standing, not like other places. They didn't tear it down. It's very different looking right now, being partially a Loblaws grocery store, and then partially behinding to a school with the Ryerson
athletic
center.
facility.
So there are things. It would have been nice to have something there, but maybe I don't know what it. Obviously, there's complications to do that kind of thing. So number 2. So number 2 we have is the 2016-17 season and making the playoffs with basically our 3 young guys, Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, and William Nylander in their rookie years, and actually making the playoffs.
And that was the surprise. It was not expected.
Yeah,
that would happen.
I think that's why now, by now, yes, we think that these guys should be making the playoffs, obviously. Mm-hmm. But even like the year or two after Matthews got drafted, like really you shouldn't have maybe made the playoffs. I don't know. But that making the playoffs and against Washington, we only lost like 1 goal by every game.
That's right.
And
we pushed them pretty far.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And so that was really exciting,
and
right?
it was fun.
And
that was like we hadn't been there for quite a while.
Yeah.
And there was an excitement too. Like even like some of the playoffs that, we like even in that 2013 season.
Yeah, that was because it was the shortened season too,
right?
The lockout year.
That was good, but it didn't feel as exciting as
because it was the shortened season.
Well,
mainly
that, and also I don't know. There's the makeup of our team was so different, and this because it had the young guys and everything. There's a promise of what is yet to come.
Yes,
and I think that kind of gave it a little bit of a different feel.
Yeah,
for me, anyways.
Okay, and number one.
Yes. And this is definitely a personal.
This is definitely a personal one. No one else has this experience, and no one is going to have it as number one. But of course, it's related to our number one overall draft pick too, Austin Matthews. Yes, it's our basically we went on a road trip to. I think we've mentioned this before with our when we were going through our road trip promo stuff and. Basically, it's our trip to Vegas, and we had a moment at the game in Vegas.
Yeah, because we all know that Austin Matthews had a night in Vegas last year.
Yes, and there was a moment after he scored the goal, he scored one of his goals.
We have to tell them where we were sitting.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So we were sitting 2 rows from the glass on the side that the Leafs were shooting on twice.
Yes.
So all the goals that he scored at that end, we were right there. Yeah. And on this one particular goal.
Yes. Yeah. So basically he scored his goal, came basically right through with his arms up in the air, stick up, right to the glass. And me and Syl were like...
We jumped up at the same time. We were
jumping up at the same time. We could have leaned forward against the glass to actually meet him to kind of high five with both hands. We would have had to
jump over the people in front of us.
Yes, but it was like he was looking right at us and banged on the glass sort of thing.
And of course we have our jerseys on and everything. So
and it was definitely a fan moment, but
big time.
It was never have we had that experience with with a player. Especially of that, Austin Matthews is a special player, obviously, right? Special. Even if it was somebody else, another Maple Leaf player, that would be a moment for us, sort of thing, right? But being Austin Matthews, it was just at another level.
Like everyone knows, and his celebrations are epic too.
Yes. So everyone's like, "Did you get it on camera? Did you get it on camera?" I'm like, "We don't think about the cameras at the game, right? Like we're into the game, right?
Totally.
We're in. I mean, I wish
actually I do have it in the camera of my mind forever.
And I mean, you can't obviously you can't have you're going to have your camera while you're going against the trying to high five against the glass.
It happens so fast that it's not possible. However, my my significant other was watching with my family at home, and they happened to catch some of it. And when I think they were recording it for us. So when we came home, we actually played it back. And so you could kind of see us a little bit.
I remember him showing. Yes, you can see it a little bit. Anyways.
Just our bottom half.
So that's our number one moment. I hope you got an idea as to the feeling, that sort of thing. You could tell we're very excited even now, sort of thing. We've never had all the games that we've been to.
And that was, those seats were incredible, first of all, and they were not expensive. Like we got really lucky on those. Wow. Anyways, definitely worthwhile to sit down close
and I'm sure we'll talk about this more again when we talk about in our road trip segment, and we say and we will probably talk about it again because it was definitely a moment that we'll never forget. So that's our top 10. And so now we're looking ahead to January. It's kind of like going to the January
doldrums,
January, February.
So we have like the bye week coming up, 19th of January to the 26th. So that's a good time for Leaf fans to take a vacation because you're not going to miss anything in case the resort you go to doesn't have a satellite TV or whatever.
Yeah, and
I always hate that week because it's so boring.
Yes, yeah, we'll have to mind you. There will be definitely now's the time that we'll be watching for like that's when the other teams will start catching up with their games in hand,
right?
Stuff like that.
True, because we're not all off at the same time. So
yeah. So definitely, it's now we're in the what do you call it? Like the playoff watch, the standings, basically, right? It's going to start now, basically, with that, and. Yeah, so
it'll be interesting to see what happens with Tampa going forward if they're able to make good on those games that they have. But
so there's no easy games basically in January. From what it starts with Winnipeg on the 2nd of January, and there's only really a couple of games that maybe you would say they should win, which is versus the Devils again and versus the Hawks.
And even with Chicago, though, it's not always a given because they can pull out a good game every now and again.
Taves and Kane are there, and it's definitely they're still good players, obviously. There's the big division game versus the Panthers.
Right, and we haven't even played them yet.
No, I don't. Yeah, no, it's kind of...
It's so weird. Like, they seem to... Those games against the Florida teams, they seem to put in the second half of the season more, so...
Yeah, and they were looking pretty good last night. I saw them versus the Habs.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. I'm like, we better be ready for that one.
That's right. And that's even without Bobrovsky playing that great.
Yeah, and he was playing pretty good last night. And Jonathan Huberdeau, and Barkov. Yeah, they're pretty good players there. And and then after the break, they come back. They play Nashville on the 27th, which I think will be maybe a dud.
I know that
game,
used to be
hopefully.
one that we used to look forward to, but
I
guess now that PK's not there.
Yeah, no, and just because it's right after the bye week too.
Right.
So that's going to take a little bit to get the guys
and
going.
Then other than that, there's just the All-Star game during this time as well. Yeah. I'm not really sure the date of that. I did not record that.
We did not. It's in St. Louis, though.
And we don't know for sure who is going to be representing the Leafs there.
Yeah.
It likely will be Austin again, but also there's talk of Freddie potentially being picked, and I'm really hoping that's not the case.
Yes, yeah. He needs the vacation. Right? We're okay with the 10-day vacation for him.
I mean, we all know he should be an all-star, but I'd be perfectly fine with him not having to go to that.
Being on a beach in Aruba or something like that. Yeah. Yeah. So we hope you enjoyed this edition of Ladies Talking Leafs. Again, give us your feedback on Instagram, Twitter.
And for all of our loyal followers to date, thank you so much for listening. We so much appreciate it. And of course, we welcome your feedback. So anytime you guys have any ideas for us, we're totally cool with listening to them, and just let us know what you'd like to hear more about, and we'd be happy to oblige.
Yeah. So we'll talk to you in a month. And for now,
go Leafs, go!